Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Olarinde in Lagos, Nigeria. We begin with news about Niger. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention is calling for the Nigerian government to release former leader Bazoum Mohammed and his wife Hadiza immediately. The UN Working Group, which considers their detention arbitrary and a violation of international law, is also asking on their behalf for the right to seek compensation. Mr. Bazoum was overthrown in a coup in July 2023. Since then, he and his wife have been cut off from all outside contact, except his doctor, who is allowed to visit. The former leader and his wife have been detained for a year and a half in a wing of the presidential residence in Niamey. The UN expert statement is not new. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres had previously demanded Mr. Bazoum's release. He even called for his reinstatement as head of state after his detention on July 26, 2023. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, a trial of 84 Congolese soldiers accused of murder, rape and other crimes against civilians in the country's conflict-battered east has started. The soldiers are accused of having broken into civilian homes in several villages in the Kabare and Kelehe territories in the eastern province of South Kivu over the weekend, raping several women and killing at least 12 people. The accused soldiers were brought before a military court in Bukavu, that's the provincial capital of South Kivu. The civil party is asking for the death penalty for all of the accused. Congo, to the chagrin of rights activists, lifted a more than 20-year moratorium on the death penalty in March. Now, the situation in Bukavu is increasingly tense as the presence of military forces escalate, with growing concerns about the security of the city and also its surrounding areas. Local interviews paint a picture of mounting fear and uncertainty among the population. Residents note that the unrest has spread beyond Bukavu, affecting nearby Nova and Bihuhe. Now, this has led many people to flee towards neighboring countries, including Burundi and Tanzania. As a result, there has been a surge in demand for necessities, such as flour and salt. Some residents have also started relocating from Kavumu to Bukavu for safety. There's also an overwhelming sense of doubt about the prospects for peace in the South Kivu region and Bukavu in particular. The sight of military trucks and the arrival of soldiers has become a regular source of anxiety, with locals feeling exhausted, sleepless, and overwhelmed by the war's impact on their daily lives. Re-echoing these sentiments, the Special Representative of the Secretary General in the DRC and the Chief of the UN Peacekeeping Mission, Bintu Keita, says the situation is catastrophic in the DRC. She tells the Human Rights Council that dead bodies still lie in the streets of Goma, which M23 fighters now control. The MONUSCO chief also warns of the health risks linked to the ongoing fighting. In response to the ongoing crisis, DRC's Minister of Communications and Media, Patrick Katembwe, spoke out against, in his words, the continued logistical, military and financial support of countries, including Rwanda, to armed groups operating on his territory. However, Ambassador James Nango of Rwanda to the United Nations in Geneva dismissed this claim, insisting that a large-scale attack against Rwanda is imminent.
While I am speaking, youth are being subjected to forced recruitment, and human rights defenders, civil society actors and journalists have also become a major population at risk. MONUSCO continues to receive requests for individual protection from them, as well as from judicial authorities under threat and at risk of reprisal from M23 in areas under its control. I reiterate that the humanitarian situation in Goma is catastrophic. The decomposing bodies collected from the streets of Goma prompted WHO to warn of potential epidemics. medical personnel are facing electricity cuts and lack fuel for their generators. They work under extremely difficult conditions when ensuring the treatment of patients and the functioning of morgues. I again call on the international community to advocate for humanitarian assistance to reach Goma immediately.
The Kinshasa-backed coalition has stockpiled a large number of weapons and military equipment near Rwanda's border, mostly in or around the Goma airport. These weapons include rockets, kamikaze drones, heavy artillery guns capable to shoot precisely within the Rwandan territory. The weapons were not turned at the threat of operations, at the theater of operations against the M23. Rather, they were pointed directly at Rwanda.
During a joint East African Communities and South African Development Communities Summit, leaders of both organizations called for immediate and an unconditional ceasefire. Rwandan authorities welcomed the meeting's conclusions, but Kinshasa was a bit apprehensive because Kigali was not condemned for its involvement in the conflict. In the Rwandan Foreign Minister's view, the meeting was a historic and successful summit that offers immediate, medium and long-term measures for restoring peace and security in Eastern DRC. On national television, he expressed satisfaction with the call for an immediate ceasefire and the resolutions from both blocs, which align with Kigali's stance prior to the summit. While the Rwandan government has been advocating for direct dialogue between the M23 and Congolese authorities, the two regional organizations have called for negotiations among all conflict parties, including the armed group, as part of the integrated processes from Luanda and Nairobi. At the summit in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, leaders from East and Southern Africa only reiterated their backing for DRC's sovereignty, calling for a framework to facilitate the withdrawal of uninvited foreign troops from Congolese territory. On the other hand, the spokesperson for President Felix Tshisekedi, Tina Salama, hoping for a stronger response from the blocs, said the aggression from Rwanda is clear and has persisted for 30 years, but the Congolese believe that progress is being made. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has sacked two of his vice presidents, the country's spy chief and other senior officials. The dismissals were announced in a series of presidential decrees read on the state broadcaster. However, no reasons were given for the decision. South Sudan has 5 vice presidents as part of a 2018 peace agreement to end a civil war. The oil-rich nation became the world's newest country in 2011 after ceding from Sudan, but then became engulfed in a civil war after President Kiir and his deputy, Riek Machar, fell out. One of the vice presidents removed from office is James Iga. He's a veteran politician and general who has been in the position since 2013 and has been the deputy chair of the party of the president, SPLM. South Sudan has not conducted an election since independence, and the first nationwide vote was scheduled to take place in 2015, but the election could not go ahead due to the conflicts that erupted in December 2013. The vote was then postponed, and the elections are now set to be held in December 2026. In the Central African Republic, President Faustin Archange Touadera has launched a meme coin in a bid to raise the profile of the country, which is said to be one of the world's poorest. President Touadera announced the launch, known as $CAR, on his X account over the weekend and saying it had been a success. But according to specialists, the value of the coin had a significant price drop of up to 90%. Meme coins are used to build popularity for a viral internet trend or movement, and fans are inspired to collect and give them value, but they are extremely volatile investments. In 2022, CAR became the world's second country after El Salvador to adopt the cryptocurrency Bitcoin as its legal tender. That initiative, launched under the name Songo, does not appear to have been successful as planned, and its website no longer works. Despite its potential, CAR remains one of the poorest countries, a situation that was complicated by a civil war that has brought much devastation to the country. Economists are assessing the potential impact of rising tensions between South Africa and the United States on the local economy, even as U.S. President Donald Trump fuels uncertainty among global investors. Mr. Trump and his administration have been vocal in their criticism of South Africa's land reform policies, particularly the Expropriation Act. Since the law was enacted last month, fresh concerns have emerged over Trump's portrayal of its effects on private property in South Africa. Our correspondent in Johannesburg, Innocent Samosa, has more in this report.
Some opposition parties in South Africa argue that the United States is unfairly penalizing the country due to misunderstanding of the Expropriation Act. But what real economic risks does South Africa face if U.S. investors react negatively to President Donald Trump's rhetoric on the policy? Makwe Maselela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers, weighs in.
The economic risks are real, as the U.S. investors and businesses wouldn't want to be seen as going against their president. We know already we're trying to get the AGOA thing to be extended, and nothing has been done so far. And as we've seen yesterday, that the U.S. president has mentioned that he's planning to announce a blanket 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports today. And as a country, our steel industry is particularly vulnerable to this new policy.
Masilela emphasizes that both the South African government and private sector should implement strategic measures to reassure global investors and safeguard economic stability amid rising political tensions with the USA. Meanwhile, Chloe Castle, director of Free South Africa, warns that Trump's stance could weaken the rand and drive inflation higher.
The first concern being a decline in investor confidence that could lead to capital withdrawal from South African markets, weakening the rand and increasing inflationary pressures. Secondly, reduced foreign direct investment as South Africa relies on FDI to fund its infrastructure and job creation. A decline in American investments could slow economic growth and employment opportunities.
She stresses the urgent need for a clear and proactive policy response from the South African government. As debates continues over the potential economic fallout, all eyes are on how South Africa navigates these external pressures while maintaining investor confidence. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
The Special Advisor on Christian Matters, Mr. Bukola Adeleke, has led other pilgrims to the Mount of Temptation in Jericho to pray for the growth of the country. Mr. Adeleke says the Mount of Temptation is a significant place in the Bible where God defeated the devil while he tempted him 3 times. The Special Advisor on Christian Matters believes that every prayer rendered here for Nigeria will be answered.
On day 2 of the tour, Christian pilgrims moved from the Allenby border crossing between Jordan and Israel to Jericho to visit the Mount of Temptation in the state of Palestine. The first group arrives at Jericho and takes a cable car ride to the top of the mountain overlooking the city on the west bank. The team alights from the cable car moves straight to the Mount of Temptation to have a first-hand experience of the place, built on the slopes, 350 meters above sea level. Some visited historic locations inside the structure where Jesus spent 40 days and 40 nights fasting and praying.
This is the oldest city in the whole world, Jericho, and we are at Mount Temptation, where Jesus Christ was tempted. And when the devil took him to the pinnacle of the mountain and was tempted, and to the glory of God, Jesus conquered the plans of enemy. He conquered devil and his cohort, where we have to pray for our state, particularly Mr. Babajide Odusola Sanwo-Olu, that no weapon formed against him shall prosper. We also pray for Nigeria. We pray for our president.
One of the ministers leading the group encouraged those participating in the pilgrimage exercise to seek the power of the Holy Ghost.
The Bible gave us a record in the book of Luke chapter 4 that when Jesus was returning, he returned with the power of the Spirit. So anything you may look for or ask for, you may need in all this very good sight is power. When you get power, you have the authority. As you say it, as you speak it, it comes to pass.
Then team members converge in a section of the Mount of Temptation for a group prayer session. The Mount of Temptation is situated along a cliff overlooking the city of Jericho and the Jordan Valley. An ancient structure built above the cave dates back to the 6th century. The pilgrims complete the tour for the day and leave the premises with a cable car, looking forward to the next pilgrimage exercise.
Back here in Nigeria, the Minister of Industries, Trade and Investment, Jumoke Oduwole, has restated the federal government's commitment to address challenges that serve as a setback to trade and investment. The minister was speaking at the ministry's management retreat with heads of agencies under the ministry in Abuja. She explains that the idea is to ensure that the sector contributes immensely to the federal government's vision of a 1 trillion naira economy, job creation and income generation, with the non-oil sector playing a leading role.
The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, alongside the Minister of State, are leading this management retreat, which has in attendance heads of agencies under the ministry. The retreat, the first for the year, is themed Accelerating Diversification to Rebuild Prosperity by Leveraging Industry, Trade and Investment.
As we begin the year, we are committed to delivering measurable impact with renewed energy and determination. FMITI remains steadfast in its resolve to lead the charge in rebuilding prosperity for all. So as Team FMITI, we will share periodic updates on our performance, independently verifiable by the CDCU with Nigerian people. And following the strategic retreat that we're commencing now with our agencies and reviewing our targets for 2025 as set out by Mr. President, we'll continue to deliver and achieve what will also be shared.
Issues of export, improved drive for local and foreign investments, ease of doing business, as well as how to improve local production of manufactured goods came to the fore at the meeting. This is to ensure that the drive for economic diversification is attained.
The first thing that comes to mind is to want to own a car. So how do we see how we can encourage domestic production and expand the market internally? All of that. There are the SAPZs. Agric remains the backbone of our economy. But we must also therefore transit beyond what? Primary, commodity export.
After the meeting, some heads of agencies speak on the strategies that will be deployed to enhance their performance.
We are looking at how we can mainstream. There are a lot of Nigerian products going through all the borders in the north, in the south, and in the west. So one of the things we need to do is to find ways of mainstreaming them that will help to increase the volume and value of non-oil export. That will also help to build capacity of the exporters, and that will also key into the renewed hope agenda of our president.
Economic diversification remains a cardinal vision of the federal government, and the ministry plans for all the agencies under the ministry to sign performance bonds to attain this mandate.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.